We're live. I know this is a West Ham channel, but something quite incredible has happened here. I mean, this is amazing. I never thought I'd be sat here, well, doing a video primarily on Chelsea, but I never thought I'd be making this announcement. But I guess if you've been following the goings on of the last, well, I guess the last 3 days really in the Ukraine, then maybe something like this isn't all that surprising. I don't want to get into what's going on in the Ukraine, but this is ultimately a result of what's going on there and some upcoming political sanctions. In fact, I believe that this is a way for him to bequeath Chelsea, the football club, to the fans before any sanctions could get their hands on the club, if you know what I mean. Sorry, Warren's just saying I'm late. I was a minute late, Warren. A minute late, it has to be said. Okay, let's look at this. Let's just deal with the statement first of all. As people join the stream, I'll have to read the statement out again. This is a statement from Roman Abramovic, and it says, "During my nearly 20 years of ownership of Chelsea FC, I have always viewed my role as a custodian of the club, whose job it is to ensure that we are as successful as we can be today. As we build for the future while playing a positive role in our communities, so on and so forth." It's about community-based stuff. "I've always taken decisions with the club's best interests at heart. I remain committed to these values. That is why today I am giving trustees of Chelsea's charitable foundation the stewardship and care of Chelsea FC. I believe that currently they are in the best position to look after the interests of the club, players, staff, and fans." Well, okay. From the outset, it looks like he's handing over control of the club to the fans. There's just one little word which has just struck me on here, and that is when he says, "I'm why today I'm giving trustees the stewardship and care of the club." Does that mean he's signing ownership over? Now, because this has massive implications and ramifications for, I think, English football, maybe global European football, certainly, but for Chelsea primarily. I think what he's trying to do is ring fence them because of what's going on in Ukraine at the moment, as it seems that everybody's going out after Russia's assets, and certainly a lot of the oligarchs who might be linked with Putin. And Roman Abramovich is certainly one of those people. So they're going to go for his assets. One of his assets, of course, is Chelsea. Now, I just wonder here, as I said, I don't want to get into the political parts of it. I think those are just the facts that we're dealing with now. I think it's a hell of a thing for him to do, it has to be said, to bequeath the club to the fans. As I understand it, he wouldn't even be allowed back in the country again anyway. I don't think Abramovich spends much time over here. What we want to get into in a minute is quite how this is going to impact Chelsea. The impact is going to be massive. But in terms of a benevolent, charitable, and I mean, he's giving it to, as he says, Chelsea's charitable foundation. I mean, it is really quite something that he's doing there just to stop, I guess, the government or whoever would seize Chelsea as an asset from getting hold of it. Does this mean that he's parking Chelsea? Does this mean, because he uses the words I'm stewardship and care? I believe that currently, uses the word currently. Is he basically storing it away so as hopefully when this all blows over, let's be fair, I hope this is all over as quickly as possible. It ain't good what's going on there in Ukraine. Is he looking at he might be able to come back and take control of it? I think not. This has the look of somebody running for cover here. This of basically getting what he can of getting out of the game as quickly as he can. This is I mean, this is really something. Sorry, somebody's just saying there, remember kids, no politics and in football chat, and I would agree with that. I don't really want to get into the politics of what's going on in Russia, but this is a direct result of it. I think he's hedging his money. I think he's probably looking to take some of his money and run, and he's probably just looking to leave this to Chelsea. Now, Chelsea, what I would say with Chelsea is, I mean, Chelsea fans are probably really worried at the moment, but I think Chelsea, that's it. Farmer Chris has just joined, so he isn't allowed in Britain anyway. It hasn't been for some time. He's obviously just joined. We just covered that a second ago, mate. He's Chelsea fans, I think they're in a. I think they're in a. I think he's left the club in a healthy position, if truth be known. I think that Chelsea are a club because of the way they've been run, because of the way the academy's set up, because of the way they loan players out, the way they sort of harvest players, don't they? They loan them out and they build them up, and then they sell them on for big money. I mean, funny enough, West Ham were linked with a Chelsea player just today. And one of more recent examples would be Conor Gallagher. You would think that Conor Gallagher probably, because of the level that they play at, is not going to play for Chelsea. Tammy Abraham would be another one. They'll play a few games, but Chelsea bring them in, loan them out, basically fatten them up and sell them off for 30, 40 million quid. That's their business model. I don't know if Chelsea are running a profit, have been running a profit, but their business model, I think, is pretty damn good. So I think they're probably in a position where they're relatively healthy. But this is probably this is probably a situation where he's going to have to write off his assets. That's just what he's going to have to do, because if there is anything left for him there in terms of any shares in the club, he's going to have to just give it over to them. Otherwise, he's going to have it seized. A crazy, crazy situation. Where does this leave Declan Rice? I don't know. It's a weird one. I would certainly think, even if we suppose for a second that this all blows over, Abramovic comes back at some time in the future, I would suggest that even though Chelsea are in a really, really healthy position, that Chelsea are not in any way going to be able to sanction £100 million, 110, 120 million pound deal for Declan Rice. It's crazy. This is a crazy, crazy situation. I do wonder, actually, someone has mentioned Newcastle in the chat. I do wonder if they sort of regret not buying Chelsea now, the owners of Newcastle. Maybe they didn't have that sort of money. You would imagine if they were haggling over 300 million for Newcastle, and there was some negotiation for some time. Possibly, they didn't have the money to buy Chelsea anyway. What are they going to do? I mean, there's going to be so much speculation now, and the big speculation that I'm seeing as I clicked on all the articles and I started looking at the statement and started looking at the news stories which are coming out pretty quickly, then there's a lot of stuff about Chelsea Chelsea going bankrupt, Chelsea folding. I don't see that. It has to be said, for reasons that I just outlined before. I think the way they loan players in and out is going to furnish them with a certain amount of income. Let's not forget they play European football. They pack out their grounds. They're not in a situation that Kidderminster Harriers are in. Let's be perfectly honest with you. I think there was certain suggestions that Abramovic might throw him under the bus, or that's not going to happen, is it? Because if he was going to do that, he wouldn't have done what he's just done now. I think what he's trying to do is park the club so he can come back to it. Possibly he's going to go now and try and separate himself from the political landscape as it is now. It's going to be very, very hard to do that, because he is seen as being very, very close to Putin, which is obviously what's caused all this now. Pete, I can see people mentioning the debt. Obviously, they've got massive debt. That being said, if it is to Chelsea, and this is the point of, if it is to Abramovich, if it is a genuine bequeathment, then there is no debt, and he would do that because it wouldn't actually necessarily be his debt. It would be surely the British government. If what the British government are going to do is take the assets of Russian citizens who are linked with Putin, then surely that debt would be seen as an asset, and then Chelsea would owe the government. Now, I don't see that as being a move. I mean, it's very, very hard to say. This is unprecedented. Nothing like this ever happened before, and I guess anybody that speaks about this with any sort of authority is just guessing anyway, because I didn't see too many people coming out. I've had the sports news on. I was watching Man City and Everton a minute ago. The sports news was on as well. Didn't see anyone in the past 2 or 3 hours saying Abramovich is just about to quit Chelsea, so people can't be that well informed. So I think a lot of people are doing a guessing game, really. Someone's okay. Let's just deal with this question here. Does that mean they got no money? I don't think so. I think there's somewhere between the two. I don't think it means they're going to go bankrupt. This would be my take on it, my guess. But by the same token, I don't think it means they're going to go and be buying players like, was it Kai Havertz was 80 odd million, stuff like that. The Lukaku's just come in for big money. I don't think that's going to happen. So do they have money? Possibly not at that scale. Are they going to go bankrupt? No, I don't think so, because it would mean somebody would have to call in the debt. Well, that one person calling in the debt would be Abramovic, and he's not going to, and he can't, and it's as simple as that, really. Is there going to be a fire sale? I don't know. I just don't know. But I'll tell you what will happen, and here's the thing, there's going to be massive uncertainty. Firstly, from the Chelsea fans, and believe it or not, I'm not sitting here taking a mickey out of them. I think it's things like this could happen to anyone's football club, particularly if you get taken over by somebody that in essence has a volatile, comes from a country that might have a volatile situation going on, which they clearly do. But there's an uncertainty, certainly. Imagine a playing squad. How are they going to find it? They're not going to know. They're going to find it hard to get up for games. This is going to have an impact. It's just going to have a massive impact. Even if it's not the sudden impact everybody thinks, it's going to undermine the confidence at the club. It's certainly going to undermine the confidence of the fans. Players are going to think twice. About going to Chelsea now. That's the thing, because there is uncertainty. If you were, let's use Lukaku as an example, because we already had. If you were Romelu Lukaku, you'd probably be looking at it now thinking, I quite fancy getting back off to Italy. There's an uncertainty here. There's also an uncertainty. Are you going to get your wages long term? Chelsea are solvent. Chelsea are going to pay the wages next week, the week after, the week after, the week after that. That's not what I'm talking about. What the problem is going to be, our players going to be confident they're going to get their wages in a year's time. Players will be right now, as we're sat here on YouTube looking at what's going on, players will be on the phone to their agents now saying, get me out of here. Get me out of here. And the agents will do so. The other thing that's going to happen is there's going to be clubs who are interested. We'll use another one. Use Conor Gallagher. I know he's at Crystal Palace now. Now, a strong Chelsea who are operating with that backing behind them of Roman Abramovich can turn around to any club that's interested in Conor Gallagher in January and say, well, he's 25, 30, he's 40 million. And they can do that with the power. They did it with Tammy Abrahams. They waited and got a good fee for him. Now, I'll tell you now, clubs will be coming in and saying, well, 15 million for Conor Gallagher. And I'm not saying Chelsea do that, and maybe he's a bad example, but they do not have the strength. And also, what I would also suggest is, let me just get this name right. So it's the Chelsea's Charitable Foundation. Is that right? Chelsea's Charitable Foundation. That's who Abramovich has bequeathed the stewardship and care of the club to. I'd like to go back to what I said at the start, because people have joined. I do wonder if there's something in that. The statement goes on. He's basically saying, I've always viewed my role as a custodian in the club. I've taken care of them. I've always had their best interests at heart. I'm paraphrasing here. And that is why I am giving the trustees of the Chelsea Charitable Foundation the stewardship and care of Chelsea FC. I believe that currently they are in the best position to look after the interests of the club, players, staff, and fans. The words currently are in there. As I say, I do wonder if Abramovich thinks he can come back and do this. What he's not going to be able to do is pull a fast one or pull a sneaky one. If what he honestly wants to do is, if this is an honest statement, and what he really wants to do is, after 20 years at the club, and he's plowed billions into it, really, hasn't he? Is give it to the fans, then what he can't do is sort of just give the running of the club to them, but keep the ownership to himself, because that doesn't keep it away from the people who want to seize, basically, Russian oligarchs' assets. He's going to have to give the assets. He's basically going to have to give Chelsea everything, basically all the shares. He's going to have to give them total ownership of the club, and he'll probably have to write off the debt as well, which doesn't leave them in a bad position. As I say, it's not the end of the world, but they're not going to have that buffer zone. They're not going to have that in front of them. Someone's saying Gio to jump in. Gio, do you want? Let me know. I've got my WhatsApp on, mate. If you want to jump in, Jump on in, my friends. I'll tell you. Just let me know. Let me know, and I'll send you the link if you want to jump in on this, mate. I actually thought Gio was away. Oh, there you go. Sorry, mate. I thought he was away. He is there. I saw Hammers Chat one earlier on. There's a little fake Hammers Chat account, by the way, that sometimes pops up in the chat. And I wasn't sure. I'm not very good at telling a fake from the real, but that is Gio there. Anyway, the other thing is, what I would say on this is that the fans are, if this is being passed over to the fans to run the club, the fans are not prepared for this. The fans are not this committee of trustees who clearly they're made up of Chelsea fans who have the Chelsea's best interests at heart. Absolutely. What do they know about running a football club? I don't know. Well, nothing. I would imagine, absolutely nothing. So they're going to have to put something in place. They're not whilst they might have been bequeathed the club, whilst they might have all of this, all the ownership and all the shares of it. Are they going to pay the board? Are they going to be? I don't know. It's really, really weird. It's weird. I don't know what's going to be going on with this. There's massive uncertainty for the club. And I'm just looking at the statement now and just looking at the news that's coming out of here. People are saying as well that Newcastle are going to now replace Chelsea. I never thought this would happen to Chelsea. I really didn't. I don't know. Obviously, from a West Ham point of view, as I've mentioned on a few occasions, what is Declan Rice thinking right now? You can't, as a player, not just Declan Rice, as a player at the moment, you can't seriously consider going to Chelsea at this moment in time. Whatever their transfer plans have gone, absolutely gone. Whoever they were planning on bringing in, it ain't gonna happen. Players that were hoping to leave Chelsea, they're probably going to be sweating on it, thinking, are we going to be able to? What do the people, the custodians of the club, know about buying and selling? Are they even going to be able to do the paperwork? Look, it's only Abramovic that's gone. The board will still be in place. The director of football, all these people, the board, the chief executives, are they going to keep them in place? I don't know. I mean, Miggsy's just saying, and let me pop your question up, Miggsy. Sorry, it was a statement more than a question. Roman Abramovich is just the owner. I don't think he runs it, so there's no real difference. I agree in terms of the running of the club, but who's going to pay these people? This is the point. This is the point. Who's going to pay? Because he hasn't entrusted it to the board of directors. This is not what he's done. He's entrusted it to the fans. The fans will now, this is what I gather, the fans, this group who are going to have the stewardship of the club, they get to decide who's on the board, right? They do it on the board. I'll just go into this. Do a bit of research on how Abramovich made his money. I'm not going to do that. I've got to say, I want to keep this football at the moment. Gio, hold on. Headphones, my friend. Headphones. Gio's joining us. He's in the green room. He's putting his makeup on. Come in when you're ready, mate. Come in when you're ready. I don't know. I do want to keep it away from the politics, okay? Clearly, he has strong ties. I know, clearly he has strong ties with Putin. That's why this is happening. Because of what's happening in Ukraine, this is why this is happening. He probably knows he's going to have his assets seized. So this is a preemptive move by him. What I wonder is he doing it for the good and the love of Chelsea? I think there's a bit of that. If he's looking at it, basically, is he jumping before he's pushed? That's the question. Gio, how are you, my friend?
I'm not too bad. Just finished watching the Man City game. They massively robbed Everton with a penalty, but nothing changes in that aspect. But I'm not too bad. Yourself?
1-0. 1-0 it was, yeah?
Yeah, finished 1-0. Okay. Should have been 1-1. Everton should have had a pen.
Oh, well, it was a close game up to then. So you were feet up, getting a massage from Mrs. Gio, and your phone obviously beeped, and it says Roman Abramovich has given control of Chelsea to the fans. What was your initial reaction?
Well, actually, I saw it on the telly, first of all. It came up in that massive yellow banner. I thought, what's
Breaking
this?
news.
I've never seen this before. I've seen managers get sacked during a game, and they still don't bring that banner up. So that shows the importance of it. And probably the surprise element of it as well. A manager gets sacked. They probably think we'll discuss it after the game. We'll let the game finish, then we'll leave it to the pundits. But because this was such big news, producers of Sky thought we got to get up on the screen and they kept promoting Sky Sports News, saying, "Well, tune in to Sky Sports News after the match." That's how big it was. I read the piece. I read the statement, short and brief. I think it poses more questions than answers. I think there's a massive lack of clarity there. And personally, reading it, I didn't think it meant anything. It meant that he's handing over the running of the club, but not the ownership, so he still owns it. I think Chelsea are that self-sufficient at the minute. They don't need Roman Abramovich to fund it anymore. They fund it themselves. He's done the funding part. That bit's done. It's secured. It's in the club. They don't really need Roman Abramovich at the minute, I don't think. He's not said he's selling the club. He's not said he's giving the club away or anything like that. He said he's just handing over the running of the club. I think he's protecting Chelsea Football Club. I do think that, because, he's not, it's history, if you like. It's not the greatest way that he's made money and stuff like that. But most people that have made money have got some sort of past they're not too happy with. But I think as a Chelsea business owner, I don't know about his business that much away from Chelsea. But as a Chelsea chairman and owner, I can judge him on that. I think he's been fantastic for them. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. If we were to get the equivalent of Roman Abramovich at West Ham, I'd be delighted, Gonzo. Someone that comes in, has ambition, throws money into the club. But not only does he do that, similar to what City have done, they put a structure in place where actually it's not a temporary thing. And once that person leaves, the club can stay with where they are in football at the minute. So I don't think they need Roman Abramovich for the day-to-day running. He's got football people in place for that. They don't need Roman Abramovich for the money. Chelsea are self-sufficient. I actually think Roman Abramovich stepping away from Chelsea won't really make much difference to the running of the club or anything. I think that's partly why he's done it. I think he probably wouldn't do it otherwise. He's done it because he knows it's safe. It's going into safe hands. I wouldn't be surprised if you were to able to find the documents and stuff, you were to look at the job titles of certain people at the club, I wouldn't be surprised if they've changed over the last few days and gone from chief executive at Chelsea to suddenly chairman of the foundation and the charity or something. So he's got people in that charity that he trusts to run the club efficiently. I wouldn't be surprised. This is a very wise businessman we're dealing with here. He's not a mug. He will have put the things in place. The statement came out how long ago? About half an hour ago, maybe 45 minutes ago. But 7 o'clock on a Saturday evening, you don't put a statement out like that, just willy nilly. That would suggest that everything's been done, everything's put in place. Now we're ready to put the statement out. I think what he's doing is, I think he's genuinely protecting Chelsea. Of course, there's an element of protecting his own assets there, because just in case the British government decide to make a move on it, and Chelsea Football Club's probably worth, I don't know, £1 billion or something like that. It's a lot of money for him. The way I read it, he's not really doing anything. I don't expect anything to change, in all honesty, Gonzo. I really don't. I think Chelsea will continue to run as they were yesterday, same way tomorrow. And it all depends on what happens over with Ukraine and Russia, of course, the length of it. And I agree with you, keep politics out of it. Let's not get into that debate. But what we have to consider in relation to this statement is time. How long? How long are you handing over ownership for? What happens if come the end of the season, it's still not fixed over there, it's still ongoing? Then, like you said, what happens for the summer transfer window? Is there a summer transfer window for Chelsea? But I think handing it over, I think what it also does, I think it allows Chelsea to, this is going to sound really bad. I don't know how you word this. I know you'll take it the right way, but I hope the viewers take it the right way as well. It allows Chelsea to now push on with PR, if you like, for Ukrainians and stuff. We've seen it tonight at Goodison Park with Zinchenko and Mitlovenko. I don't know how you pronounce the Ukrainian left back for Everton. You've seen them. You saw Zinchenko and Tier. You saw them embracing each other at the halfway line in a warm-up. It's a beautiful thing. Clubs are going to be doing their own thing to help support these people that's affected by it. Chelsea will have the same as well. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there's Ukrainian employees at Chelsea or families with Ukrainian people at Chelsea with Ukrainian families or something. It puts them in an awkward situation. I think removing Roman Abramovich from the equation, I think, helps the football club in that respect, where it's difficult. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult for Chelsea to try and do something when their owner is Roman Abramovich, who has very direct links and a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin. We know that. I think taking Roman away allows the club to then you've got to separate what's going on from Roman Abramovich as Chelsea Football Club, I think. And I think taking Roman out of that allows Chelsea to put things in place to support those that need it.
Yeah, I think from that point of view, it's certainly the case. It's going to give the club breathing space. What I do think, though, because I've as you've watched, I've gone through it and looked at the statement, and there's quite canny wording in there in terms of handing it over and stewardship, and for it's made to sound temporary, isn't it? I think what they might have done is, though, if what they're doing is he's trying to safeguard Chelsea from it being seized as an asset, that won't do it. Because it's a bit of a case of, oh, look, Roman's not here anymore. It's nothing to do with him anymore. He's gone, but actually still holds the shares. That's going to fool nobody in Turkey looking at as seizing their assets. So I think so I do wonder, even though it is temporary, and I picked up on it straight away. I do wonder if actually what he really wants to do is honestly protect it, that he might actually have to hand those shares over. You said something which was very interesting, though, which was him placing staff, or the people change their job titles. The chief executive might now be the chief executive or manager of the trust. It didn't actually ever occur to me that this might not be the original Chelsea's trust. I'd sort of thought, looking at it, mate, he's handed this over to basically the biggest Chelsea supporters group or something like that. But actually, that's a really good point. Maybe Abramovich created this trust. Maybe it just because it sounds all pink and fluffy. It sounds like he's just giving it to the fans. It's like it's like any of our fan groups, or if
we've got a foundation. West Ham got a foundation, which is separate to the club. It's owned by the club, but it's got its own set of accounts and stuff as well.
Absolutely, but it's not obviously the same as a supporters club. And that's the point, which is just full of supporters members. And I think when I read it, I initially thought, oh, the supporters club. You may be right. Maybe this is actually going to a foundation that's set up with him. But I don't think he's going to be able to trick his way out of this. I mean, but what I do think is, though, because I agree totally with you, that he's put them on a really sound financial footing. The way they make their money is actually not dependent. They don't need Abramovich to bail them out anymore. But what I do, so I don't think financially it's gonna cripple them. They have to start selling people tomorrow. But for the reasons I said, I do think the uncertainty around the squad, players being on the phones to their agents saying, "Get me out of here now." Players that were looking to go to Chelsea might think, "Oh, I can't do this." I know you're busy. You got any thoughts on that in particular before we go?
I can understand where you're coming from. In terms of incoming transfers, perhaps I think there will be some people that will put off with it. I think, but football's a greedy game at the end of the day, and Chelsea is a big club. They will still have the lure for the majority of footballers, I'd imagine. In regards to the current players, I'd be surprised if any of them wish to leave. I think if they had a Ukrainian at the club, I think that would feel inevitable that player would be a bit uncomfortable playing for a club with Roman Abramovich as the owner. However, with the current crop, I don't know. Like I said, I'd be surprised. I think this is probably part of the reason, not the only reason. I'd imagine there's numerous reasons as to why Roman's done what he's done. But I think this, like I said, the PR aspect of it, I think is probably one thing that is, so you get away from the club. You need to get away from the club at the minute because you're bad news. We cannot be associated with you to some extent at the minute. You leave, let us run the club, and that is taking care of the current squad that they've got. So in all honesty, Gonzo, I'd be surprised if we saw any drastic changes with Chelsea. Like I said, the statement though is very, very vague. It'll have more questions than answers to me. I've seen some journalists like Jason Burt and that saying the same thing, saying, what's going on? What does this actually mean? Okay, you've given the control over to this group, but what is that group? Who is that group of people? And this is why I expect over the last few days this has been put in place, and I would be shocked if Roman didn't have people who he's worked with for numerous years, trusts endlessly, that has no connections to Russia, in charge of it. So I don't think anything will change from Chelsea. I'd imagine the day job will go on as normal for 90% of the employees. They'll go into work tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, and nothing will have changed whatsoever. Very, very few people at Chelsea would have had interaction with Roman Abramovich anyway. He's got football people in that football club running it. I think those football people will continue to run it, just under a different name, just under a different umbrella. Temporary. I expect Roman will be back in charge later on down the line, once it has come to a conclusion. Like I said, I think the one thing we don't know at the minute is time, and I think that's the issue. I think if anything, this indicates that Roman expects it to go on for a little while, which is not good. You know, if he thought, bear in mind, he's what you would call somebody that's clued up on this, if you like. He would have a hell of a lot more knowledge regarding this than you or I do. And he's somebody that's in a position to make an educated, a well-informed guess as well in terms of time. And he thinks it's going to go on for that long. He needs to give the club to someone else to run for the foreseeable future. That's not a good indicator, really. But in terms of the day-to-day running of Chelsea, don't expect it to change. Player sales, don't really expect there to be too much. The incomings, could maybe see why people would be put off, because what it does, this is why you're doing the video, it creates an uncertainty over the future of Chelsea. At least there's an uncertainty now what's going to happen. The players have that uncertainty, staff will have that uncertainty. When I say staff, I doubt it's going to bother a receptionist, but if they're going to try and go get a well-renowned chief scout or try and poach a coach from one of the top clubs in England, I think they might have a little bit of difficulty doing that, actually. But I don't know. We'll wait and see. I can see why. Well, it involves everybody in football now, doesn't it? You know, the Chelsea news, that is. Everybody's gone, wow, okay, this is unexpected. But I think also it's unexpected, I also think it's very unclear as to what it actually means for Chelsea. My initial feeling was nothing. Same owner, just run by a different group of people for the time being.
I think I'd agree with that. I think the problem is with him here; he doesn't get to decide. And even if he does say you're running it, you're basically an arm's length management organisation. I just want to thank Alex, by the way,
just
for
before
saying
I disappear
for this bit of research. So thanks for that, mate. Sorry, Gio. Yeah.
I will say, when you said he's not running it, I would be surprised if he's not running it. I would imagine I would expect there to be regular communication between Roman Abramovich and whoever that's in charge. And it's interesting that, like that comment you clicked on from Alex there about who the trustees are, but like you said, it's the chairman. You know, the chairman is the trustee. So in theory, the head guy at Chelsea is the head guy of the trustee. So it doesn't really make too much difference. I'm not convinced, but anyway, I just disagree with you on a few things when I was listening to it, keep watching the football and stuff, and I thought I'd pop on and give the other side of the argument, if you like, which is I don't expect much to change.
Yeah, no, listen, mate. I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. It's just I don't think he gets to decide. Right. Anyway, listen. That's it. It's Gio's going now. Gio, I'll catch you later, mate. I'm going to wrap up. Cheers, matey. I'm going to wrap up myself there. It's just this is really, really interesting here. This is clearly a move to try and maybe hedge his bets. I think to protect the club. And I do think it is a benevolent thing to do this. I'm just not sure whether it will work. It seems like a bit of misdirection, a case of I'm not running the club anymore. Look, somebody else is, so please don't come after me. If he retains the shares, they're still going to go after him. I'm not entirely sure this works. There you go. No, somebody say no, he did not quit. Absolutely. And you know what, mate? Thanks for joining in. But if you'd have watched the last 33 minutes, you'd have seen we've tried to cover every angle at all. But you know what, mate? I've got to make a little headline at the start just to say what's happened. And you know what? That's what I clicked on. That's it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Relaxing Woody, you've said you're not interested at all 4 times. I think, my friend, if you're not interested at all, you don't tune in. You love it, mate. You love it. But look, I don't say I love it. It's hot news for West Ham. It really is. Sorry, for football in general. It's not particularly news for West Ham unless you look at it for Declan Rice. But I'm not relishing it from the Tottenham point of view. Gio alluded to the receptionist. I don't want the receptionist at Chelsea to lose a job. I really don't. And I don't think that will happen. As I said, and myself and Gio didn't actually disagree on that much. I think it's a very, very well-run club because of the way that they do the loan system. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea turn over a bit of a profit or are close to being the most profitable club. That's not it. But it is going to have a shake-up. It is going to have an impact on players. It is going to have an impact on confidence. And I do wonder if this will signal the end of Chelsea as a super club. And I mean a sort of those top guys that are up there. And I'm talking about Chelsea, Man City, PSG. There's a reason I'm not using Barcelona and I'm not using Real Madrid. I'm talking about the people that have the mega billionaire owners. Is this going to be the end of that? So basically, if that club is a little bit shy, there's someone there that can go and pump him 300-400 million. Maybe it is, maybe just another one of those billionaires. I don't know how many there are in the world, but only so many billionaires, I guess. Maybe someone else just buys it off of him. I mean, that would have possibly been the thing for him to do. I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see. It all depends on what goes on in Ukraine. That finishes quickly, and let's hope it does, because there's people, no one wants to see what's going on over there. If that finishes quickly, fine. If it drags on, as Gio alluded to, then they will have their assets seized, and then we'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I thought it was an interesting bit of news. Take care. Listen, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. He said goodbye from Dubai. Goodbye indeed. It is what is really odd, as someone just said. It is before a final, and it is. That's my final words would be. I don't, because there is a final coming up. I don't think he would have done it today unless he had to. I mean, he absolutely had to. If he had the choice, he would have waited till after the final. But the fact he's done it today probably indicates that he knows something that's going to happen in the next day or two with regards to sanctions. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Most of you, anyway. Most of you have been nice. Been a few funny comments in there, but particularly from the Chelsea fans, I do understand it is a tough old time. We certainly haven't gloated on this channel about it at all. So, listen, best of luck to everybody. Don't forget, I'll be here an hour and 5 minutes before kickoff for the build-up show before tomorrow's game against Wolves. Charlie will be here for the watch-along. Be back straight after with the review, and of course on our Patreon we will have a Patreon breakfast, and of course we will have the player ratings, which we will do on Monday morning. If you want to sign up to Patreon, help the channel out, you can please check out the link below. I say the link below, I haven't typed it below. I'll type it now. Go and check it out. Lots of ways to support the channel, lots of extra content. Until I catch up with you tomorrow, all the very best.